August 1972, Pike County woods near the town of Louisiana, Missouri. Our six-man ranger team was moving light and quiet on a training run. Locals said something big walked the bottoms after dark. We laughed, then we heard it. Low, wrong. Like a long breath rolling through trees. The compass started drifting. We found clawed wood on an empty cabin, and prints were too damn big to be a joke. That's when I knew this wasn't training. We weren't alone. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel, and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. I'm telling this straight. Just what happened in late summer 1972 in those hills west of the river outside the town of Louisiana, Missouri. You can look at a map and put a finger on it. Pike County. Bluffs and bottoms. Old farms gone to seed. Walnut and oak. Thick brush that tears your sleeves and holds your sweat. Big river down the slope breathing fog like a slow animal. I was Staff Sergeant Michael Grady back then. They called me Hawk. Vietnam under my belt. A couple tours. I'd learned to keep my mouth shut and my eyes open. I was 33. Not old, but I felt like it because the officers were young and shiny and the boots were still testing how to lace theirs. We were six, a small recon team out of Fort Leonard Wood. A tune-up, they called it. Night field exercise. Operation Long Knife. Some colonel wanted silent movement validation in terrain analogous to Eastern Europe. We had the hills. We had the humidity. That part matched. My guys were good. Corporal Rick Danner carried the radio. Smart kid. Analytical. Always tapping his pencil against the logbook like he was balancing math in his head. Nervous, but reliable. Private Eddie Brooks was the pup. 20. St. Louis City boy. Big grin, bad mustache he was proud of. He listened hard and worked harder. Staff Sergeant Coleman was our sniper, an old-school hunter type who kept his rifle clean and his words cleaner. He had that stoic thing, the stare that let you know he was looking past you at whatever might be behind you. Doc Haynes handled our bandages and our blood. PFC, wiry, kept a roll of peppermint in his shirt pocket and a silver cross around his neck. Said he didn't believe in anything he couldn't stitch or splint. The officer was Lieutenant William Sloan, West Point, 26. Good cheekbones, shoes too new. He thought war had rules. I didn't press him on that yet. We rolled into town mid-afternoon in 2 trucks and a borrowed Jeep, all of it dusty, hot enough to cook a can of beans on the hood. Cicadas yelling in the trees. A few farmhands at the gas station watched us fill up, thumbs hooked in belt loops. An old man with the straw hat and the yellow dog near his feet spat into a coffee can and said, "Y'all Rangers? Training run?" I told him. He nodded but kept watching the tree line like it owed him money. "Don't go sleeping in the bottoms," he said. "Something big walks there after dark." "Bear?" Coleman asked, flat. The old man shook his head once. "Bears ain't the shape this thing is. Folks round here call it the Missouri Monster. Momo. Been around a while. Lives near Marzolf Hill. You'll hear it before you see it." Brooks snorted, trying to be brave. "We'll invite him for coffee." The old man only looked at the yellow dog. The dog didn't move. We laughed when we got back to the trucks. Soldiers do that. Laugh at warnings so they don't stick. Sloan used the moment to talk about mission discipline and local legends and how we shouldn't let hearsay shape outcomes. Sounded like a pamphlet. I told him Roger and checked the roster. We staged near a dirt turnoff west of town. Sun just starting to drop, laying orange on the tops of the bluffs. The air smelled like wet iron and cut hay. We tied bootlaces again, loaded rucks, checked batteries. I rubbed the nick in my rifle stock for luck. Danner tested the radio. It hissed and popped like bacon. He smacked it and gave me a thumbs up. "Call sign Echo 2, I told him. "We're the ghost no one hears. Keep it short." "Top wants us walking cold and quiet," Sloan added. "Observe, don't interact. Log movements, terrain notes, and times to the minute." "Copy," I said. "I've done enough observing to know you can watch a thing until it sees you seeing it. Then you better have a plan that isn't a clipboard." We moved at dusk. Fog rolled up from the low ground, fingers sliding through the brush. The ground was damp in the bottoms and dusty on the ridges. Crickets took turns with the frogs. Every creak sounded like a whisper. The town lights were a smear behind us now. Just trees and shadows and sweat. We made camp at a little shoulder above a dry creek bed. That was the plan. Leapfrog by night, hold by day. We ate cold. No stoves. Coleman passed around jerky from some deer he'd killed back home. Missouri deer, he said. Good protein. Don't ask me what part. Brooks gagged for show. He still ate it. Everyone eats when they're scared and won't say it. We kept the fire down to a glow, tinfoil low and tucked in a scrape. The sound of it seemed too loud, so I kept glancing out into the black. The trees cut the moon into hard lines. Somewhere deeper in the valley, a dog barked, then went quiet like somebody shut a door on it. Locals said monster, Brooks said, smiling. Momo. What kind of name is that? Town fair kind, Coleman said. Or moonshiner scarecrow. They like to keep kids out of the bottoms. Or keep you in, Doc said, chewing slow. Folks make monsters to explain why they don't have fences. Bears, Sloan decided. Or black cattle. Or the old man wants to sell newspapers. Our mission didn't change. We move at 02. We'll cut across the creek to the west spur and run ridge to ridge until Echo Ridge. That's your waypoint. Everyone mind your noise discipline. We are validating Silent Standard. It's why we're here. Silent Standard, Coleman repeated. What's that again? Tiptoe like a church mouse? Exactly, Sloan said, missing the joke. I looked at the map. I had red pencil lines and grease marks on the paper. Abandoned farmsteads were noted. Fences were down. One fishing cabin near the creek. That could give us cover if the heavens opened. The bluffs were steep. Visibility would be bad if fog sat heavy. I drew a little X on the upper spur. We'll cut here if we need to, I said. Marzolf's tower is beyond. Don't count on it being open. Who names a hill Marzolf? Danner asked. Men who put their names on things, I said. And don't have kids. They laughed a little. It was the kind of campfire talk that keeps hands busy. When the laughs died, the cicadas felt too loud again. I told myself that was just nerves. First nights always scrape. We doused the glow, turned in. I took first watch with Coleman. He sat still, breathing slow, face blank as wood. You can trust a man like that. He doesn't need to fill the dark with words. I watched the trees and listened to frogs and tried to pull the heat out of my shirt. A whip poor Will called 3 times from down in the creek bed. Then it didn't call again. I told myself that meant a raccoon got curious. I had to tell myself something. That's how it starts. Little tells, you talk past. We moved at 02 like planned. No night vision. Just the moon and the line of the man in front of you and the feel of your boot soles finding the right ground. Rubber on moss, leather on rock. A slow snake of us pushing into the dark. Somewhere behind us, the old man with the straw hat probably slept with his dog, knowing more than he told. I should have listened better, but I was younger then, and I still thought discipline and a good plan could bend the woods. The woods don't bend. We went deeper into the valley. The ridges leaned in. Trees held the fog low so it crawled. The sounds were honest at first. Frogs, crickets. The river like a big lung to the east. Every now and then a fish slapped water and you heard it. We moved quiet, hand signals, little puffs of breath. Then the frogs cut out. Not slow. One moment they were a blanket, the next they were gone, like the sound got vacuumed up. Just our boot steps and our breath. That kind of silence is a weight. It sits on your neck and tells you to shut up even more. I felt my shoulders hunch. I wasn't the only one. Danner raised a hand. He looked at his compass, tilted his wrist one way, then the other. He frowned. North is drifting, he whispered when I got close. Not by much. A shade, like a drunk needle. Mag disturbance, Sloan whispered from behind me. He liked to put names on things. Names made him feel in charge. Could be the iron in these rocks, I said. Or you're holding the damn radio too close, Rick. Danner moved it away. The needle twitched like something irritated it. He shrugged. It's good enough, he said. He didn't believe it. I didn't either. The radio hissed now and then. Once I thought I heard a voice. Just a syllable. Cut out. Then it gave a long, low buzz that made my molars ache. I could feel Brooks looking at me in the dark. Lieutenant Sloan did his calm face thing, like that would help the waves hit the shore better. We crossed a little feeder creek and climbed a low bank. I could smell mud and the faint burn of old gasoline, like somebody had dumped a can out there once and it never left. The map said there was a fishing cabin somewhere near. We found it after a turn through trees that snagged us like hands. It was a squat little thing with a porch broken in 2 places. Tin roof rusted brown like dried blood. A busted window on the back where damp had bloomed green around the frame. "Take 5, I said. "Water." "Check straps." Coleman ran fingers along the doorframe. He squinted and then put his flat palm next to a gouge. "Something scraped here," he said, quiet. "Claws." Not a nail. Deep. The marks were wrong. 4 in a row. Spaced wide, like the paw was huge. Too wide for a raccoon, too wide for a dog. Even a big one. The top of the gouge was at my chest. Bears, you'd think. But there was no 5th hook mark like a thumb. And black bears, they don't hang around this hard, not that I've seen, and not carving doorways. Danner bent, measuring with his hand. Spacing would put the hand, if it's a hand, at least 8, maybe 9 inches across, he said. He looked up at me. "That's large. Black bear can get up to..." Sloan started. Coleman shook his head. "Bears don't do this." And this wood wasn't shredded. It was raked with purpose. Look at the drag. It wanted inside. Doc leaned in. He touched the splintered wood like he was feeling a pulse. "Old," he said. "Not fresh, but not ancient. Moonshiners," Brooks tried, scaring folks off. "Moonshiners need the door to stay intact," Coleman said. "They're practical people." I looked in the cabin through the busted window. The moon pushed a thin light. You could see an iron bed frame, a fallen chair, a cooler with the lid off. Nesting rats had made the place their church. There were bones on the floor in a dark knot. "Rabbit," I told myself. Rabbit and chicken. All the little animals get turned into the same pale sticks when they're picked clean. We moved on because we had a line to make. The radio hissed again. The compass needle, when I checked it, still twitched like it had a fever. Danner came up next to me. "You know the legend they called it? Missouri Monster?" "Momo?" High school buddy from Hannibal told me about it once. "Big hairy thing. Walks on 2 legs. Smells like a trash fire. Throws rocks. Eats dogs. They said it was up around Marzolf Hill back in '72. Folks carried shotguns into town. The sheriff told them to go home. Folks like to tell stories in summer," I said. "Heat makes for lies. Don't matter. We're not here for campfire." "Yeah," he said, and he didn't sound sure. We slid down into a gully where a fallen log made a slow bridge. The fog there felt colder, like it had been stored in ice for a while. That's not right for late August. I kept moving and felt sweat turn to cold slick. My shirt stuck and then went clammy, as if the air nodded off and forgot we lived in it. On the far side, where the brush opened to a little flat, I heard something. A sound rolled over the valley like a low beam. That's the best I have. Long. Low. It started somewhere I couldn't point at, and it didn't stop where I thought it would. It traveled the way fog travels. It sat in your bones. Not a coyote. Not a dog. Not a cow. We all stopped without looking at each other because we knew it wasn't any of those. "Wind," Sloan whispered, trying to turn it into weather. "Not wind I've met," Coleman said. We stood very still. The sound faded. The frogs stayed quiet, like they were holding their breath with us. Then a minute later, far off, a single clap echoed like a big hand on a trunk. Once. Twice. Then nothing. "Keep moving," I said. I kept my voice low and plain. I didn't want it to sound like an order, and I didn't want it to sound like fear either. If you give fear a name, it runs faster than you. We made our next layup on a flat near the creek. We set the perimeter, no fire, just a dull red gel over a flashlight under a poncho. Moon fell behind the trees and the world turned thicker. Heat thinned and the smell of wet things rose. Rot, sap, something else, hair and damp rug. Like a zoo at closing. It came in waves, the stink. Not steady. It would find you, then draw away, then come back again stronger. A rotten sweetness under the wet fur stink, like bad fruit crushed into mud. It rode the air without a breeze. That's what I remember, like it walked the smell to us. I was on last watch when something brushed the tent, not a branch. Not the skitter of a mouse. A drag. Cloth puckered. Then 2 steps. Heavy. Then a pause. Then 2 more. Not a deer. Not a man trying to be quiet. That's the thing, the spacing. It wanted us to hear. I put my hand on the rifle. My mouth went dry, and I could hear the little click of my throat when I swallowed. Coleman had a trip flare set at the creek, just in case. He's the kind of guy who tosses rope might be needed. He went to check it without a word, and came back with his face carved a little tighter. "Tracks by the water," he said. "Bear. Deep, you need to see. We went in twos." Me and Coleman, Doc with us. I let Sloan hover but not lead. He didn't like that, but he didn't fight. The mud by the creek kept the story. You could see where something heavy had stepped, and the water leaked back into the prints. The foot shape wasn't like a boot or a shoe. It had the fan of toes. 5. The big toe sat out proud, not tucked like ours. The print was long, 16 to 18 inches if you ran a stick. And deep, heavier than any man I'd known. "Hoaxers wear wooden feet," Sloan said, as if his mouth needed to make a sound. "County fairs. It's a thing. Hoaxers don't weigh what made that," Doc said. He touched the edge of a print and the mud caved like wet cake. "And hoaxers don't carry that stink." We followed the tracks 10 steps. They went from the water to the brush, then vanished like whoever made them. Decided leaving a trail was impolite. I've tracked men and I've tracked animals. This wasn't how either moved. Men forget themselves. Animals don't care if you read them. This was different. It took back what it didn't want you to have. We set more wire, more small noise traps. Sloan wrote "unknown animal sign" in the log and underlined it twice, like underlining makes it professional. Danner kept taking notes, but his pencil shook a little. The radio popped in my ear later, near dawn, when I was trying to drift and couldn't. Just a low hiss, then a whisper. It was Danner's name, but wrong. The first syllable stretched, the second cut quick. Re-e, then gone. I lifted my head. Who the hell? No one else moved. Danner's breath was slow. Coleman turned his head a fraction like a deer catching scent. I clicked the handset. "Say again," I whispered. "You cut out." Static. A faint scrape, like a mouth near a mic, but no words. Danner stirred. "You call me?" he asked, sleep in his voice. I shook my head. "Radio's playing games." He frowned, tapped the casing, put it against his ear. Nothing. At first light, we found the trip flare missing, not tripped. Missing. The wire hung loose. The end wasn't cut clean, wasn't chewed either. It was snapped. Strong hands twisted it until it parted. I held the wire up and looked at the trees and told myself not to think about hands. We decided to move as the sky turned milk. We didn't make jokes now. There's a kind of chatter soldiers fall into when they're calm. Little digs and little stories. It keeps them in rhythm. That was gone. Boots on leaves. Breath. The occasional metal click you wince at. We reached a patch of soft ground where the tracks reappeared. They circled our last perimeter. A full loop. Then another, wider, not random. Like a dog walking around a crib, reading us. We were being handled. It stuck a foot down real deep at one point, like a man testing ice. Then it stepped away and left us the print as a gift. Sloan wanted to log it, mark a point on the map, and keep going. Mission is mission. I wanted to call it. Pull out. I wanted command to say Roger, extract. The radio was still a half-dead snake. I pushed the handset until the rubber bit my hand. Echo 2 to long knife, I said. Radio check. A burst of static. Then a voice, too faint and too far. Go to, say. Unknown, animal sign. Possible threat to safety. Request early extraction. Oppie, Con U2, Wayant, Echo Ridge. Stay, then nothing. Grady isn't so sure, I thought, mocking myself. I looked at the team. They were looking at me, not at the lieutenant. That's how it was. He had rank. I had their necks. I nodded. We move, I said. Eyes up. Stay tight. The growl came again, and this time I could feel the direction. West. Deeper in. It rolled down the hill through the trees and into our bones like a train through a culvert. No one made a joke. Brooks crossed himself fast like he didn't want anyone to see. We kept to the ridges. Planned path be damned. I wanted the high ground where sound carries and eyes have a chance. The sky brightened, but the woods stayed dim. The canopy was thick. The air felt full, like a bell jar. Birds should have been making their morning racket. They weren't. Every now and then, one would give a single clipped call and shut up. That's the kind of thing you learn to hear after years walking places where men kill men. The woods have moods. This one had its backup. Around mid-morning, Coleman held up a fist. He crouched, motioning with 2 fingers parallel to our path. Movement. He didn't say it. He didn't have to. I scanned where he pointed. At first, all I saw were trees, brush, fog. Then a shadow slid between shadows. Tall, not hunched like a deer. 2 beats of motion, then it was behind a trunk. I felt the hair go up on my forearms. The shadow moved with no noise my ears could pick up, which is not how big things move in brush. Branches should have snapped. Leaves should have complained. The law of the wood says, big makes noise. This didn't. It's paralleling, Coleman whispered. Keeping speed. Eyes on, I said low. No shots unless it commits. We moved, and it moved. I could feel it more than see it. Every now and then there'd be a shiver in the leaves that didn't match the rest. The path between 2 trunks would fill with a darkness that kept its shape too long. I kept counting heads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I kept coming up with 5 because I was trying not to count the shape that made us 6 plus something. We came to a sycamore scarred 8 to 10 feet up. Bark peeled away in long curls, fresh enough the sap still wept a little. The marks were vertical, deep, like someone had taken a rake to it. Way up there. A man with a knife couldn't have reached it unless he brought a ladder and a mean streak. Territory, Coleman said. He said it like a hunter, not a soldier, like he was reading the sign the way you read a posted fence. Doc squinted up. Traveling show might have lost an ape once, he said, like he wanted to sound rational in front of the officer. Happened in the 40s a few times. Circus outfits, small ones, had chimps or bigger. Some folks kept them. Not a lot of rules. One gets loose, goes feral. 8 to 10 feet up a tree with claws like crowbars, I said. In Missouri. He shrugged. Urban legends start somewhere. The radio coughed. For a second, the line was clean and I heard a strong voice from the fort. Echo 2, you read? Reading, I said, heart picking up. Advise. Proceed to Echo Ridge. Observe and report. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Unknown animal tracking us. Request, negative. Continue. Observation priority. The line cut. Danner looked at me. It was the first time I saw his eyes go from nervous to scared. The difference is in the whites. They show more when a man stops pretending. We hit an old quarry clearing around noon. White rock, weeds, a rusted tractor belly up like a dead beetle. The fog burned off enough to see our shadows. There were marks in the dust. Drag marks, not animal. I've pulled deer out of brush and dragged bodies out of holes. The track of a heavy thing that had been pulled and turned left a signature. This was like that. Bones lay scattered near one corner where a rain puddle had dried to a ring. Not animal bones. I knew that before I knew it. The shapes were wrong. There were no skulls. No long lower leg bones you could count easy. Pieces. Cut by teeth that weren't sharp like a cat and weren't flat like a cow. Odd chisel bites. Little piles of hair and dull coins of dried blood. A dog tag chain with no tag. Christ, Doc said under his breath. Sloan lifted his chin like he wanted to reverse what he saw. Wild dogs, he said. Strays. Coyotes. Scavengers. Hunters bring things to clean. No coyote carried this in, Coleman said. He toed the ground and turned up a neat half-moon of hard mud where something heavy had knelt. And we've been paralleled since dawn. It's not the coyotes we're logging. Danner's breathing went up. He took it down by force, like he was keeping a well cap on. We are being watched, he said, and no one disagreed. That night came on faster than it should have. Back into the trees, back into the dim. We set a tighter perimeter, light discipline down to nothing. Double watch. I told Brooks to keep his safety on unless he saw a throat. He nodded fast. Sweat ran down his temples, and I could smell the metal tang of it. The sound started just after we ate, not the low roll from before. Something closer. High-pitched, somehow deep. I don't have better words. It had a throat to it. Human, almost shaped like a word was in there trying to form. It cut through you and left the ends tingling. It sounded angry at the shape of the world. Brooks panicked first. He stood and fired one shot into the dark. The muzzle flash lit the trunks for a second and showed nothing. The shot echoed off the bluff and rolled until it wasn't ours anymore. "Stand down," I snapped, my voice quiet and sharp. "You don't fire at noise. Not here." "Something was moving," he said. His voice was high and thin. "Everything is moving," Coleman said. "That's what woods do." It went quiet after the shot. Too quiet, that big blank again. Then, far out, we heard a thump. Slow. Measured. Like heavy feet. Not running. Not charging. A walk made to be heard. 1, 2, 3. Then it faded, and I realized I'd been breathing too shallow to be useful. We cut the talk to 0. We waited. You can wait forever if you have to. The military trains you for that. But waiting when something you can't name is making the rules. That's different. Time doesn't pass right. It swells and thins like water in a hose. Near dawn, a mist thick enough to cut with a knife slid up from the creek and wrapped the trunks knee-high. Coleman, on watch, whistled once in that quiet way he had, just a thread of air. I joined him by the edge of the camp. He didn't point. He didn't turn his head. He just let his eyes show me a spot where the creek crossed the flat on the far side. There, in the mist, a silhouette moved across the water on 2 legs. Not a trick of branches. Not a man hunched in a coat, tall. Shoulders like a refrigerator, head set forward, not sitting like a man's. It made 2 strides in a place where I would have needed 4. It didn't splash like it should have. The water parted around its shin and fell back slow. Coleman went prone and slid his rifle out. He found the shape in the glass, and I watched the muscle in his jaw jump once. "Eyes," he whispered. "Amber." The thing stopped as if it heard the word. It turned its head in a way that made my stomach tilt. I've seen men and deer and bears turn to look. This was none of those. It was smoother, like the neck had more room in it. The eyes in the scope flashed back a dull burn, the way a dog's can when you hit it with a flashlight. It took 1 slow step backward out of the water and vanished into the brush like a piece of dark glued itself to a darker piece. We held there. You don't jump after something like that. You don't chase shadows at dawn. You hold, and then you hope it leaves. It didn't leave. Branches broke out to our left, then to our right, measured and quick. Not a charge. A circle. Danner lifted the radio and it crackled and then seemed to breathe in his hand. His eyes flicked like a man's in a nightmare looking for a door. "Starlight's dead," Brooks whispered of his cheap scope. "I got nothing." "Save your batteries," I said. "Save the fear for when it matters." We had 3 flares left and a handful of chem lights. I signaled Coleman. He launched the first flare over the creek line. It popped and hissed and hung, a red sun. In that red it showed itself at the edge of the trees. 8 feet, maybe more, thick in the shoulders. Hair matted like wet ropes. Not a gorilla, not a bear. Hands that were hands, not paws. A face that was too human to be an animal and too animal to be a man. Heavy brow. A nose that kept the shape of a nose but flattened high between the eyes, like it took a punch it never forgot. Lips pulled back slightly from big square teeth gone brown. It stood like it had always stood, not a stranger to that posture. Seconds stretched. Then it roared. The sound had spit in it, heat. The hair on my arms tensed again, full. It reached down and grabbed a limb as thick as my thigh from the ground and threw it like a spear. It hit with a crash 5 yards short of our line and skidded, spraying dirt. When it hit, I felt it in my boots through the ground. "Hold," Sloan said, voice a paper knife. "Hold position." "Are you out of your mind?" I said. I didn't look at him. "We fall back to the ridge now." The radio, like a bullet hitting a door, came clear just long enough to ruin our choices. Echo 2. Stay put. Observation priority. Do not engage. Repeat, do, then static. Observation priority, Coleman said, low. Bait. The word stuck. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't have to. I felt the team feel it. The thing in the trees moved again, and the flare burned down, and we threw another. This time it showed empty trunks and brush, and our own faces lit from below like ghosts telling jokes. The thing had melted away. Day dragged itself into place. We held. Then we held some more. The trees didn't give anything back. Eventually I told myself to breathe, and told the team to eat, and told the lieutenant we were withdrawing at last, Light Weather Command liked it or not. He didn't argue like I expected. He just nodded. His face had gone thin. He knew what bait felt like now, and he didn't like being the worm. Night fell again with a kind of shrug. We set one flare, one chem light. Keep the last flare for God knows what. The eyes showed up at full dark. Not just one set. Several. I won't say how many. You can count headlights. You can't count eyes in black with dew hanging on the air. They weren't bright like a cat. They were dull like coals that had decided to wait it out. They didn't blink the way we blink either. Long stretches open. Then a slow slide of lid. Then open again. Watching like we watch. Testing like we test. Multiple, Coleman said, as if I couldn't see them. We're not dealing with a lone one. Families, Doc said, voice a thread. Or a troop. Or hell if I know. The last flare burned out as the eyes drifted a hair closer. The red sank to a seizure of light and died with a hiss. The dart took us like a bag pulled up over our heads. I tasted metal. I kept my fingers straight. I told myself if I panicked first, I'd get us killed faster. We ran. No cool withdrawal. No Marine Corps parade field. We packed fast and moved faster, and the woods grabbed at us like net. The eyes moved with us. Not close enough to touch. Close enough to touch our brains. I could hear them now, not their footfalls, but the little pieces of the woods they pushed through. A stick breaking. Leaves dragged. Breath heavy and wet once, and then caught. At least two. Maybe more. Numbers didn't matter. One would have done it. Brooks went down first. Not a fall. Not a trip. 1 second he was aback in front of me. The next he was sideways in the brush like someone had hooked him with a winch and yanked. He screamed once, sharp, surprised. Then it cut off. Not because he stopped. Because something stopped it for him. Brooks! I barreled toward where he should have been, and Coleman caught my strap and jerked. You run into that, you vanish too, he said, voice iron. He was right, and I hated him for it. I shouted Brooks's name once more. The woods answered by not answering at all. Where? Sloan asked. Like we were solving a math problem. His eyes were too wide and his hands were on the wrong part of his rifle like he'd forgotten furniture. Move, I said. If I stopped, if I let the grief flood in, we were done. We went uphill because uphill is where you go when the ground is trying to kill you. We went for the fire tower at Marzolf Hill, a place with a spine, a place with stairs and angles in steel that could take a hit. The handprints started showing up as we climbed, not cute little prints in soft mud. Smeared mud on trunks 3 feet above my head. Big hands, flat, fingers long. One had pressed into a tree and left an imprint in the outer bark where the pressure mashed water and sap out. You don't do that with fun. You do that with purpose. A message in a language older than what we speak. The radio woke up just enough to throw a nightmare at us. Echo 2, disengage, unauthorized contact, do not fire, extract ETA unknown. The rest turned to wet cloth in my ear. Unauthorized contact, Danner said, breathless. With what? Us, Coleman said. We cut sideways around a boulder and found something half buried. A little green lozenge with a wire. A motion sensor. Already wired. Already watching. I swallowed hard and tasted dirt and peppermint because Doc had shoved a piece at me sometime in the run and my mouth had turned it into paste. Pre-wired, Danner said, voice gone flat. They knew. Sloan stopped like a man who has just seen his house on fire. He put a hand on the rock like it might hold him up better than his legs could. We were an experiment, he said. The words sounded big and stupid in the air. They put us out here to draw them in. No time, I snapped. Put your anger in your ruck and carry it. Move. The tower rose out of fog like a ghost scaffold. Steel legs. Stairs clanging under boots. An old cabin at the top with windows clouded by years. We made it inside and barricaded the door with its own rot. We set out of line of sight of the windows but close enough to watch the steps. They came up like men. Slow, testing. A hand curled around the step below and I saw the hair and the dirt in it and the width. Coleman put the barrel through the floorboards and fired. The sound inside the tower kicked my brain. Outside, something screamed. Not a human scream, not an animal one either. All at once, and too many notes at the same time. The stairs shook like a truck had hit a post, and then it stopped. We heard movement outside, like big bodies rearranging themselves in the fog. They rocked the tower. That's what I remember. The metal legs shivered. Bolts squealed. It's an awful sound when the thing you trust to hold you starts to think about it. We crouched, braced, waited. I found a piece of my mouth and bit it until blood brightened the metal taste. I looked at Doc. He had his cross in his palm and wasn't looking at it. He'd just found it and needed it to live in his hand a second. The rocking faded like they decided they wouldn't knock the food over yet. Dawn was bleeding up through the trees. They didn't like the light. That much I know. They moved away, slow, without hurry. I put my head against the floor for a second, the way you lay your head against a window on a bus. I could hear them in the ground, almost. Or maybe that was my heart. When the sun burned, the mist thin, the woods went quiet again in the wrong way. The kind of quiet that comes after a fight when both sides lick their wounds and count their pieces. We counted ours. 4 left. We didn't say Brooks's name out loud because saying a name makes it real, and nothing is real until you let it be. The helicopter came late morning. You hear that sound in your sleep for years after. The chop turns the air into pieces. It was unmarked and loud in the open way a bird isn't. It came in a slow circle and then slotted itself above the clearing like it knew the spot. Ropes dropped. Men slid down, not in uniforms I recognized. No patches, no names. Faces like closed doors, carbines small and tidy. Hands where we can see, one of them yelled, voice like a mechanic telling you to move your car. We did it because we were tired and because the tower had shown us how small we were. They put us in the bird like we were sacks going to a different barn. No check on injuries beyond a fast glance. No one said good job. No one said sorry. In the noise, I could see the town's water tower in the distance for a second. The paint was flaking. The top had a dent in it I hadn't seen before. Funny the things you remember when your brain is deciding what to keep. They flew us to Jefferson Barracks. Landing hard, quick trot to a low building with no windows in the hall we used. Then doors, then rooms. Separate rooms. I didn't like that. Separate rooms mean separate stories, and separate stories mean someone is looking for the holes. They started debrief right away. I've done debriefs. You sit. You drink coffee that tastes like the old pot. You talk to men who don't look up much. This wasn't that. This was a drill bit put against a tooth. They asked the same questions in different orders, trying to trip me. What did you see? Describe the eyes. How tall? How many? How did it smell? Did it throw anything? Rocks? Sticks? Did it stack anything? Any scratching marks? High or low? Fresh or old? I answered, the way a man answers when he hates the man asking, but loves the men he came in with. Short. Clean. No extra. I kept Brooks in my mouth and didn't let them take him. They pushed papers at us later. Non-disclosure. Words like court-martial and sanity evaluation floated through the little room like flies. The threat had weight. I'd been Army long enough to know they could make my life a square box and nail it shut if I didn't scratch where they pointed. Sign, the man said. He was military in posture, not in rank. His hair was tidy in a way you didn't see in field officers. His eyes were tired. He didn't look like a monster. That's the thing about monsters. They wear clean shirts. I didn't sign it first. I was stubborn and stupid. I won't pretend a man didn't get taken under my watch, I said. I won't pretend I didn't see what I saw. A second man came in. He wore a lab coat because some people need the costume. Civilian, thin as wire. Glasses. He sat like a bird on a perch and looked at me like I was a jar with something inside. I'm Dr. Keene, he said. We're very grateful you brought back this much data. Data, I said, and the way the word tasted told me I was going to sign something I'd hate. We referred to your contact as Subject Class 3. The common name floating around is colorful. Your boys said locals call it Momo. We prefer taxonomic clarity. Homo Ursus suits for now. I stared. Homo what? Ursus, he said. Bear man, if you want to be silly. It's not right, but we work with scaffolds until the shape shows itself. They've been known since the 40s. Earlier, if you read the right books in the right rooms. They were not new to you. You were new to them. They took a kid, I said. They shook a tower. They threw a tree. Your sensors were already in the ground. You fed us out there like bait. Keen tilted his head. A scientist with a thought he liked too much. You weren't meant to survive, Sergeant, he said. You were meant to observe. The man with the papers slid them closer. Sign, he said again, like a friend offering a smoke after a funeral. Or, we make your next 10 years long and quiet. I signed. I hate that I did. But I knew back then what I know now. A man can plant his feet and lose everything he'd need to keep fighting later. I kept what I could hold in my pocket, and I told myself I'd use it right. They kept us separate another day. Then they let us sleep. Then they let us go like letting rabbits back into a field after you tag their ears. Weeks later, I was reassigned. Paper orders. Different unit, different post. The stories about Operation Long Knife went quiet at the fort. A colonel I owed a beer to didn't look me in the eye in the chow line. That's how silence works. It's contagious. It grows in corners. Lieutenant Sloan resigned within the year. He sent me a letter from a post office box in upstate New York. Said he was thinking of law school, or maybe just learning to farm somewhere where the land was honest and small enough to see in a day. He didn't mention the hills or the eyes. He didn't have to. It was in the blanks between his words. Coleman put in for leave and then didn't come back on time. They found him 2 towns away working at a sawmill, hands raw and happy. He said he'd come when he was ready. They told him come now. He said no. They threw their threats and found out he was heavier than he looked. The Army doesn't like a man. It can't move with paper. Last I heard, he had a line of traps along a creek near the Arkansas line, and he slept well because his nights were his. Danner stayed in. He got quieter. Married a teacher. 2 kids. He still sends Christmas cards, if you can believe it. On the back, he'll write a single line in pencil, like a man testing the water. You hear anything? Or, saw a raccoon print on the porch, laughed too loud. Then the next year, he'll write nothing at all. Doc Haynes got stationed in Germany. Sent me a bottle of schnapps with a note to wash the taste. I didn't open it. I keep it in a box with other things that never got used. I went home to Missouri when I could. Not right away. Years later, I took a long, slow drive that way men do when they're trying to see if a place still has the shape they left it in. The bluffs were still rude and honest. The river still breathed fog and ate shoreline at its own speed. Louisiana had a new diner in the same old water tower, paint more peeled than before. The gas station, where the old man had warned us, had turned into a feed store. I looked for the yellow dog and found a sign that said, "No checks." Out past town, on the road that runs a slow curve along the bottoms, there were new fences where there hadn't been any. Government metal with that tidy diamond weave. Signs hung every 30 yards. Restricted area. No trespassing. The kind of signs you don't test if you like sleeping in your own bed. I stopped the truck on the shoulder and got out and stood very still. It was late. Not quite dark. The cicadas were putting their shoulders into it. The air pressed close. I closed my eyes and let the sound roll. I told myself I was listening for frogs to stop, but that wasn't it. I was listening for a low, long sound rolling down a hill. I didn't hear it. What I did hear was the wind drag itself through the highest leaves and make that whisper that sounds like the world trying to tell itself a secret. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. See you soon.